And we're joined this afternoon on It's Art. Let's talk about it by our friend Rachel Spencer. And Rachel, you recall recently in a little Instagram text has the delightful Rachel Spencer. So we're just going to start off with that. The delightful Rachel Spencer, whose photography show at the Museum of Western Art has just kicked off, and it's in our Key Keffer Gallery. And it's just stunning.
Thank you.
It really is. It's just stunning. You walk into that gallery and there's this Mustang staring right at you, and a beautiful quote about wildlife. And your photography that is in that show, when we first started putting it together, I thought there's going to be just a lot of black and white, but it's black and white photography, but there's a lot of excitement in it. There's a lot of good pictures in that show.
Thank you.
Let's talk about how you got started. Were you one of those kids that you've always carried a camera around and it was film and now it's digital, or you just found your niche later in life?
My original degree was going to be in fine art. I was going into advertising and graphic design, and they didn't have a program specific to that. I was at the University of North Texas.
Okay.
And so I got 3 years of art history, and you had to take sculpture and painting and figure drawing, and you did it all.
Similar path to what I was on. Yeah.
Yeah. Most artists have a certain amount of that. But one of the things you took was black and white photography.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed being in the darkroom and the going out and finding subjects. At that point, I hadn't found my
niche,
my calling. I am definitely a little bit of a frustrated artist.
Yeah, a lot of us are. Yeah.
So it's photography gave me the ability to put onto paper what I could never make my hand do.
And you and I first met here in Kerrville, obviously, because you have a home here in Kerrville, and you're in Florida. And there for a while, I was confused where you were, but it is a split arrangement where you spend time here with your mother, and you have a home in Florida where a lot of your friends are. And I got to looking at your photography, and I was just absolutely amazed by the polo ponies, the polo photography.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong equestrian.
Yeah.
And when I first started photography, I think I had a horse that was a stallion that I was trying to promote, and I was doing all the advertising for him myself because of my background. And I was like, I need a good camera. I need to be able to go out and take some pictures to be able to incorporate that into what I was doing. And I was like, this is really fun. And I think like most people that get a camera in their hand, it's like your dog, the flowers, you go outside and you go and play around with it, and just really kind of fell in love with it over a period of a few years.
Yeah. And I was looking at the polo photography, and it was amazing to me. And I thought, I wonder if we can do a show, right? Because I'm always looking for shows at the Museum of Western Art. And can I do a show? And it's just everywhere I turned, a show about polo photography or with polo photography of polo players probably wouldn't work. It just didn't seem like it was going to be natural. Then I looked at maybe portraits of horses, because on your website, there's just all these wonderful, fabulous portraits of these polo ponies. And I thought, I wonder if she can do anything else. And then the more we talked, more we kind of came into this whole icons of the American West, because I'd heard you'd been on safari, or not photo safari, and been to places. And you've been doing that a long time. Is this
I really kind of fell into the wildlife photography and really just completely fell in love with it. I spent a lot of time with it, and I was kind of phasing out of my full-time life with horses.
Yeah.
And photography was what I did to get away from the horses. And now I find I'm trying to create that balance between the two. I've kind of fallen back in love with the horses.
Birds was your passion.
Birds was the first love.
That was the first passion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we thought about doing a bird show, and I thought, man, that might be a little too limited.
Not very Western.
How many birds can you look at? And unless it's eagles, we really don't know. But the bird photography was just phenomenal. And then you and I started talking about big animals, right? Yes. And I understand you took a few trips to make this happen.
I reached platinum status last year with Delta.
Did you really? So you went to various places to do specific animals
Yeah, our conversation, we started talking about doing a show and how it needed to tie into the West. And I've always just followed, like, yeah, it'd be really cool to go photograph polar bears or go photograph wildlife in Kenya. I'd never really thought in the construct of a show or a series.
Right.
And this really pushed me to go, okay, what would you call this show? How would you tie it into the Western landscape? And I spent a lot of time at the very beginning going, okay, what are those Western
Right.
species? How do they tie into the bigger story of the West? And I just sat and brainstormed for actually quite a while before I ever tried to do any research on trips.
We've been talking about this show though for 3 years.
Yeah, a little over 2 for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, certainly over 2.
Yeah.
And it was a question of, okay, what animals should be in the thing? And then you said, "Well, I'm going to go up to Alaska and photograph the bears.
Yes.
And then I'm going to go to Canada and photograph muskox. I'm going to go to central Colorado or Wyoming and photograph the bighorn sheep." And it's just every time I was kind of on an adventure with you. Every time you get back from a show, okay, hey, did you get some good shots? Kind of. And that was fun to be a part of, kind of watching you put this thing together. And
it was an artistic journey for me. Like I said, I'd never worked in the confines of a series and trying to put together the broader story, how that ties back into the animals, how that ties into the photography. So it's been a tremendous learning experience.
There's a fabulous portrait of a bighorn sheep ram, Cody, Wyoming. He's sitting low in the grass and the lights coming in the evening. And I guess my question is, you didn't just walk to the top of the mountain and take that picture. You had to set up for a lot of these things. Is there a lot of time in a duck blind, so to speak?
Nothing in the show was from a blind. I take that back. The deer were from a blind in South Texas.
Okay.
But everything else was you research. So you've decided we're going to go shoot bighorn rams. Where's the best place to do that? And it was not far from Cody, Wyoming.
Right.
So then you get in your car every morning before sunrise and you go out and you look at the environment and you then make educated decisions on what is photographically going to work. And as a fine art photographer, what I'm looking for and what is going to work on the walls in the museum or in people's homes is very different, perhaps, than what a traditional wildlife photographer is going to try and capture. I was really seeking the broader landscape.
Do you think that shooting for a show, for a museum, changed your shooting of the animals?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Because that's what you were thinking about, was how's it going to look on the walls?
Yeah. And I guess this brought into focus for me what I have never been able to quantify for myself. When I've been out shooting before, you get very in the moment and you're watching a lion take down a gazelle or whatever you're watching. While that is a fantastic behavior and it's amazing wildlife photography, it is not what somebody's going to buy to live above their bed or on their living room wall. Some people might love that, but I wanted to tell more the story of the landscape and how the animals fit into that environment. And then just the really beautiful moments in nature that are out there. So I guess the focus of the photography was different. Now, if that other moment happened right in front of me, I was shooting it. It just didn't happen to make it into the show.
How many pictures did you take?
We've
had this discussion before.
I did do thousands.
Yeah.
I did try to put down the wildlife icons by the numbers.
We're joined today on It's Art, Let's Talk About It by Rachel Spencer, whose photography show Icons of the American West at the Museum of Western Art has just been a killer. People are really enjoying it. Earlier, podcast producer Tom Fox was in, and he and his wife bought 2 this past weekend and have already decided they want 2 more because it's going to go on their wall so well. And so that's been exciting for me to watch people buy the art. And it has to be, for you, a little charge. It's got to be fun.
Oh, it's incredibly gratifying, people to see your work and want to then live with it and bring it into their homes. But as a photographer, most of the time it's living on the computer because everything's digital.
And let's talk about that, because you started out, as I did, as a black and white photographer with black and white film, right? And Tri-X, and you processed it or whatever it was, right? You processed it and had the negatives and printed on a black and white and ran it through the fixer and all that, right? Today, it's a different world altogether, right? Photography major today would not recognize the photography major I was back in the 70s. Your work is all in color.
My work is all in color.
But it's all in black and white. Right? The resulting was sepia tone. The photography, we made a conscious decision. You made a conscious decision to do this as a black and white show.
Correct. Yeah.
So talk about that computer time. It's a lot of computer time.
It's a ton of computer time. It's my biggest part of my computer time is probably spent going through the images and choosing the image that is matching with the emotion that I'm trying to pull out. So there might have been, let's say, 30 shots of that ram in the grass. It's then going through each one with a fine tooth comb, finally coming up with the one image you think that is all the parts that you're trying to make happen. And then you spend time editing. My editing time is truthfully not that much.
Really? Okay.
It's really the culling through the images that is the most time consuming part for me.
Now, the gearheads out there are going to want to know the answers to the questions. What do you shoot with? What kind of lenses? Nikon or Canon versus, do you shoot 35 millimeter or the equivalent? I mean, that single lens reflex versus Hasselblad. Talk about the gear. Talk about the lenses.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a gearhead for sure. I definitely love the latest and greatest. I'm been a Nikon shooter since about 2014. I currently have 3 Nikon Z9s, and I have their 600 millimeter f4 with the built-in teleconverter, which gets me out to 840 millimeters with a flip of a switch. My current absolute favorite lens is Nikon's 135 millimeter plena lens, which is f1.8. And it is just
bright lens,
phenomenal lens. A Moment's Respite that's in the show that was printed 40 by 60, that was taken with that lens. A bunch of the horses were taken with that. So I used it quite a bit for the show.
Tripod or no?
No tripod. Monopod for the long lens, for sure. I have a ground pod that I used extensively for the bears. We spent a lot of time laying pretty much face down at water level / in the water.
A wonderful photograph of a bear called Full Charge in the show. It's to the right as you go into the gallery, and it is just phenomenal, of a bear coming right at you. And people have asked me there at the museum, how close was she?
The number one question I got asked was, how close was I?
Is it really? That's the number one question we're getting asked, was, how close was she?
Yes, absolutely.
How close were you?
Close enough I was uncomfortable.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. My mentor and we did a float trip in Alaska for that. And we camped on the river on a quote sandbar in the middle of the river. And we heard the bears rushing 24 hours a day in the river, because the salmon were running. And so it's a great time to be there with the bears because they're only concerned about
they're stocking up.
Yeah, and so
getting fat.
We were just on this sandbar, and it was just as the salmon were starting to run. So we just had timed it exceptionally well. And the salmon were just at that point. So we didn't have to go anywhere. We could roll out of our cots and our sleeping bags, and we could be shooting in less than 5 minutes, which was absolutely phenomenal. But we spent a lot of times like flat on our bellies, right at water's edge. And those bears came running 25, 30 feet.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was.
Thankfully, they're more interested in the salmon than they are.
Yeah, it was a rush. The first time it happened, I stood up. We did have a guide with us that was to keep us safe and tell us when we were being ridiculous,
too obnoxious.
Yes. Yeah.
So the gear is pretty much the same in every shoot. when you go places, you take those basic same lenses?
Yeah, I have a wide angle lens. I have a 24 to 120 that's really, it's an f4. So I lose a little bit in f with that one, but the versatility of that 24 to 120 is really great. I carry that one with me every single place I go. I took it, I just did Antarctica just
Right.
at the end of last year as well.
Right.
And that was also probably my most used lens on that trip. I try to use it quite a bit. My focus as when I first started was, oh, you've got this long lens, you've got to get right in there and get these close-ups. And the longer I have photographed, the more I've realized that environment and the surrounds tell more of the story than just the close-up.
What was the most difficult shot to get that's in the current exhibition? Or maybe a better question, what was the favorite shot? Do you have a favorite?
I am
You have
really
one that you keep coming back to?
Yeah, I'm super fond of two images in that show. One is called Wide Open Freedom,
Right,
and it's just a sliver of land with the wild horses walking at the bottom. They're just peacefully grazing, and it's just a big, fluffy white cloud. And it just speaks so much of what I think of when I think of the West and wide open spaces. I really love that image. And then A Moment's Respite, which was a lucky image,
Okay.
if that makes sense,
Yeah.
because anybody that's been to Rocky Mountain National Park for the elk rut understands how insanely crazy it is with people.
Yeah.
To get a wide angle shot where you don't have
A
1,000
Yeah.
cars and 1,000 people in it with
Yeah.
the
Bugling elk and
you get bugling elk, but there's everything is in the way there. It's an incredibly challenging
I feel like the same
environment.
way about photographing in the Tetons and Yellowstone occasionally. You go in there and there's some great, wonderful pictures that look in my portfolio that look like they were taken a million miles from anywhere. And there's tourists just to the left and to the right, and you just can't get them out of the show.
Yeah, my plan was Jasper that year.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they had that horrific fire. And
Right.
so I kind of pivoted to Rocky Mountain National Park.
One of the things that I was most impressed with in this adventure with you was our opening night, because the exhibition opened on a Saturday and the Friends of Rachel showed up. It was so much fun to talk to. It's been fun to get to know your mom, but get to know your friends from Florida and from all around who showed up, and that would be rewarding for the people to show up. And
Yeah, that's really the power of community.
Yeah.
I've always been involved with the horses and the show community. I've done that since I was 25 years old, and we won't talk about how many years that is, but it's a lot. And you really get this community of individuals around you I think in any sport you do or any activity you do where you spent.
Do you photograph alone or with groups, with people? You go a lot with people. Does it help to be in a group of like-minded individuals?
Yeah, and it's way more fun.
Right,
You get to commiserate over the shots you missed, or wow, did you see that? That was so incredible. I really enjoy the camaraderie of that. Also, as an artist, on the flip side of that, it can also be very frustrating when you're trying to deal with a group and everybody's at a different point in their photography journey. I like to call photography a journey, because I don't think it's about where you're at. Where you're at today is going to be very different than where you're at a year from now or 3 years from now or where you were 2 years ago. So I try to.
And for those of you playing along at home who aren't watching this, but if you're listening to it on a podcast, you can go out to museumofwesternart.com, over to our podcast page. We have a page with all of our podcasts on it. And scroll down to the Rachel Spencer podcast, The Icons of the American West, and click on it. And we'll provide for you photographs from the show, a link to the book, which is online, which you can purchase at the Museum of Western Art, which we're real excited about it because it's very good. But we're going to put photographs, links to your website. And here in just a minute, I'm going to make you give me some of those addresses. But people playing along at home, they can go out and play along, so to speak, and get a better understanding of the photography and the broader sense. But I guess this opportunity now to talk to thank some of those people out there who've been instrumental in getting you to this point of having a one-man show. You talked about a mentor.
Yes, my mentor, his name is Drew Doggett,
Okay.
and he actually worked for Annie Leibovitz. He
Okay.
was a fashion photographer in New York. He did that for about 10 years and realized that was not for him. And so he's gone into the fine art space. He's pretty much solely black and white. So he's been
Okay.
tremendous influence for me that way. But then also he has become a friend, and that's who I did the grizzlies with the brown bears with. I did Antarctica with him. I'm getting ready to go photograph horses in Cappadocia, Turkey with him.
Wow.
So he's also has a course. He runs a course on fine art photography. He's just
let's do a shout out to Mr. Doggett there.
That's everybody should check out Drew's work. It's really, he's got pieces in the Smithsonian. He's just a tremendous photographer.
Sounds like you were lucky to have a mentor and a friend that can
absolutely.
Be on this journey with you.
I have other people that I've traveled with. Nikhil Ball, I've done a ton of trips with him.
Okay.
I did some stuff with Doug Gardner, who actually he's done a TV show on wildlife, and he's also, his latest work, he's now gone more into filmmaking, but his series, he's shot several of the segments for the Americas series and specifically the rivers.
You have a favorite place to take pictures?
My backyard here in Kerrville.
And the reason I asked that question is I think I knew the answer going in. We had talked about that. And sometimes people just think they're going to talk about Yellowstone or Cody, Wyoming, or Alaska or Canada. And when we were talking before and you asked that, I kind of going right there on my own back porch, my own.
Yeah, I really love, when I first was back here in Kerrville, this is my second stint living here. I used to be like, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to go find things? And I really started getting into what's actually here on our property.
And I guess that's an important part for people who are interested in photography, is that you don't have to go to Alaska to enjoy your photography.
No, I've had several of my images taken right here on our property.
And several
have won
in the show.
Have won in contests.
Yeah,
one of the deer.
One of the deer in show,
the snowy deer, it was taken here on our property. So
that's just pretty cool. But people think they've got to go to Turkey or Alaska or wherever to get great images, and it doesn't hurt to have the big mountains or the big whatever. But
subject matter is important. But I think everybody has sparrows or blue jays, or of course my focus here is more on the birds. But those common birds, I think there's tremendous images to be made there. So it becomes about really studying your subject and looking at your subject. And
all right, now, standard question I ask all my artist friends, and I include you in that group. As a museum director, I see a lot of artists. So I talk to a lot of artists on It's Art, Let's Talk About It. Advice for youngsters wanting to be in the arts. What would you say to that person who's got a camera, got the gear? If you were being a mentor, you were, saying, okay, they're going to say, what would I do next? What's that good piece of advice? It can be real simple too. It can be, I had asked a photographer once about that, and he said, keep your lenses clean. It's really, is it that simple? Is it just shoot a lot, muscle memory? What is it?
I think it's getting outside and really learning to see your subject, whether that is the sparrow or the robin, and then figuring out how to make that best photograph. Because in wildlife photography specifically, I think there's a lot of field craft that goes into that. There's plenty of guys that have podcasts and magazine articles about this ad nauseum.
Right.
But it is about learning how to approach those subjects and be able to get the images you want. It is not about the editing on the back end. It is getting out there and being like, okay, I really love this behavior, or I love this part of the bird or this feather pattern, and then try and figure out how to capture that.
Seems like observation then.
A lot of observation.
Is the key to what you would give advice to a young person.
And my background, like I said, was fine art. It still continues to be a major driving force behind what I'm doing, and almost more than it was at the beginning.
What's next for Rachel Spencer? You're headed someplace, I know, because you're always headed someplace. Platinum member of the American or Delta Club, which is it? Yeah. But you're going somewhere, right?
I'm going somewhere. I am currently working on a series called In the Company of Horses.
Okay.
And that is going to include some of my polo based images. So it's going to be some wild horses. It's going to be Horses from Cappadocia. We're getting to photograph those in some pretty tremendous places. I think there's potentially a Western shoot in there somewhere, like Roundup, Dude Ranch. Still kind of working on putting that one together, but I'm excited about that series just because of my background in horses.
Yeah, I've spent some time in Montana, and your photographs, the one you mentioned that you like so much, is it's the horses there in the mountains and how hard that is to get close to those guys. I've done that. I've been there, and man, it was just, I kept thinking, man, I'm never going to get close enough to get a good picture. But it's the big sky country. It's Montana.
Yeah,
So,
I try to think about when I'm there, it's okay. Like, what's the predominant feature here is, yes, you're here shooting horses, but what makes this place so special? And it is the landscape.
The landscapes. Yeah.
So
you got back from Kentucky recently? Or did you?
I'm headed to
You're
Kentucky.
headed to Kentucky.
Yes.
I knew that was somewhere in my list there of things to ask you about. You're going to go to Churchill Downs.
That's Louisville. So I'm going to Lexington.
Lexington. Okay.
That's the Kentucky Horse Park is where I'm headed.
So you're headed to take more pictures of horses.
Possibly. It's polo. Polo is happening there right now. So I'll be up there for going into their big polo season. I have my horses are up there, so I'll get to go see them and ride them.
The adventure continues with Rachel Spencer.
Absolutely.
Which I hope everybody will come by till August 30th. The show is called Icons of the American West, photography by Rachel Spencer. It's set aside in a gallery. We painted the gallery, put up some really cool graphics, and it's a wonderful little story of icons of the American West. And we're so absolutely thrilled at the Museum of Western Art that you were on this adventure with us, and hope people will come by and see that show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been just incredible.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I'd like to say, I do encourage people to come by and see the show, at least pick up the book. Photographs are available. Ones off the walls and prints, if they're already, those are on the wall or sold. We can get you framed and unframed and make all that happen. Rachel, thanks for being on It's Art, Let's Talk About It. It's a production of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. Did I get that right, Andrew? Yeah, Andrew said, yeah, thumbs up on that. An award-winning podcast, so we're real excited about that. A lot of people listen to it. If they want to know more about Rachel Spencer, what's the websites to go to?
It's rachelspencerphoto.com.
rachelspencerphoto.com.
Yes, there is a Rachel Spencer wedding photographer. And
there is. And I was going to make sure I pointed that out. You first I had people doing research early on, and it was, is she a wedding photographer? No, she's not a photographer. Not ever.
Not ever.
She's a wildlife photographer, bird photographer, and a great friend of the museum. And Rachel, thank you for joining us today on It's Art, Let's Talk About It.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming by.